G'day folks, welcome to this introduction to the full campaign of Atlantic War. Just a reminder, this is the SVI edition from 1978, so it's about 43 years old. It is a big game and it's taken me many hours over the course of 3 days to set this up. I think anyone who has set up the full campaign will know how difficult it is. I mean, you're looking at very tiny font on the counters. You have to get sort of everything in the right position. It can be very difficult to read the hex grid, and there's a lot of errata. So there are missing units. There are misprinted units. What else? The errata has errata. What else? What else? Misprinted units. Yeah, a lot to take into account when setting this up. But here it is, close to, well, I think I'm finished. I'm sure this is not without error. I'm sure there's something in the wrong place somewhere, just because there is so much potential to go wrong. Over 2,000 counters in the game, but here it is. So we've got Utah Omaha Gold Juno Sword. We've got a huge, I'll zoom in a minute to give you the detail, but big Allied fleet out here, smaller fleets around Omaha and Utah. We've got space for the counter trays for German, American, administrative and British units out here on the left. Got a few trays for German delay markers. Now, I'll explain these in a moment. Other administrative markers, demolition points down here. We have air units sort of mainly out on the left, which I'll show you in a moment. Airborne units down in the bottom left corner here. Technically, we don't set these up until they're about to sort of embark, but I've got them all ready now. I started to set the reinforcement schedule, but it became a bit messy, so I've stopped and I'll do that sort of as the days arrive. In terms of German units, the blue dots, you can see a few of these blue dots around, they mark German headquarters. It's important to note where these are because the Germans will have to draw supply to these headquarters. I'll zoom in just a moment. In terms of German divisions, you can see, I think it's 21st Panzer Division out here, a mix of 7/16th, 352nd along the coasts, with 709th along the coast out here in Utah, and a scattering of 7th Army Troop. We've got the 91st out around sort of start of the Cotentin Peninsula out there, very much scattered. Yeah, and then their headquarters. Now, as I said, divisions have to draw supply to either their headquarters or to their core headquarters. That's acceptable for the Germans at least. But they only start with 2 replacement steps, and that's it. I think for the entire campaign. I mean, there's not a lot. So there's 6 headquarters on the map. That's 12 replacement points the Germans have. So that's going to be tough. The Allied headquarters, when they arrive, they have 6 replacement points per headquarters. So a lot of Allied replacements. This area here shows the units available for build-up. So I can take these companies when they land and build up into these. The Germans also have a scattering of companies, a lot of 352nd around this area, and they can build up into these battalions. You'll note, I guess, some important terrain features is that bocage right in the centre there, right in the centre, dominating the map. And in this full campaign, of course, we use the delay counters, which I pointed out earlier. Basically, if Germans withdraw from a bocage hex in Allied zone of control, they can place these delay markers. And these are basically decent. They're random. They can be decent strength units. You can see up to 3. I think there's some bigger ones. There's a 4-2 in there. So these delay markers can very much delay the Americans. It's placed face down, so the Americans can't see it. And when they attack the hex, you flip it, and they're forced to resolve the combat without quite knowing sort of the strength of that unit before they commence their attack. And you can't place artillery bombardments on this. You get regimental shift and armor shift, but no other bombardment bonuses. So it's going to be quite difficult to move through the bocage. And that's really, I think, going to influence Allied strategy and my thinking moving forward, which I'll talk about in just a moment. So bocage everywhere. It's going to be very tough for the Americans to advance. And already I'm thinking that, I mean, this clear terrain has to be huge for the Allies. It has to be sort of the main thrust, I think, of their efforts around Bayeux, certainly around Caen, and sort of, what are we looking at? East of those two rivers, and then driving towards Carrington and Sydney, and then the sort of area between to link up Utah and Omaha. A lot of clear terrain out there, some swamps as well, but yeah, a lot of clear hexes around the coast as well, which is going to be very important. And that's really going to drive Allied strategy, looking for that clear terrain, and well, looking for ways to exploit. It's going to be very difficult exploiting through this bocage. And I don't know quite how they're going to get it done. The first obstacle is, of course, getting on the beaches. We have the paratroop landings. So let me zoom in and show you the airborne troops. So you can see the three airborne divisions of the UK 6th, 82nd and 101st for the Americans. They're broken down into companies. They're placed in little groups behind their troop carriers, behind their pathfinders. The pathfinders land first, and then you roll for scatter, and you roll for each company and their scatter and potential losses. So they'll be landing first, as I said. This is printed on the back of, actually way out on the edge of map A, way out on the left. And I've just printed these up on little pieces of paper so I can do those landings and then throw the paper back in the box without having to worry about it. Let me flip around and show you the beaches. Okay, so here we have Gold Juno Sword, the British and Canadian beaches. So, I mean, I've played throughout 2019, 2020, I played a lot of GTS, The Greatest Day, Gold Juno Sword. And it's interesting to think that, that title in the Grand Tactical Series covers sort of this area. And in Atlantic War, yeah, it's just covered pretty much by one map. Looking at this, these are, what are we looking at? There's a lot of strong points. I'm already kind of thinking about how to get off the beaches. There's sort of only one sort of hex, one unit stacking along the fronts here for most places. This is a difficult point here with a resistance nest and a strong point. There's some very strong points out towards Ouistreham, out on the far left, out here. You can see here two strong points and a resistance nest in the one hex. That's going to be very difficult to crack open. Fortunately, the beaches are here, so they kind of land here, and they'll have to deal with that after securing the beaches. One thing to note, I mean, you may have seen my Omaha beach videos, but these beaches have far lower gap numbers. So only 12 here, 20 here, and 20 here to open the beaches. Whereas you may recall, Omaha required 45. That said, these are much narrower beaches. So there's only sort of 4 hexes to roll for, or 4 beach spaces to roll for. I'll explain sort of how that works later on. But higher drift rolls, higher DD landing rolls makes it easier to get these troops ashore. Basically a drift roll of 4 or less gets these units ashore. 5 will see them drift, and I think only a 6 will eliminate these units. It's much more difficult on Omaha, where a 5 or 6 will eliminate. If I pan around, you'll be familiar with Omaha Beach through my playthrough. So I've done this one twice. This is definitely the hardest beach, and the one I'm most concerned about. If this goes badly, I think everything's going to be the whole invasion is going to be in trouble. And then we have Utah over on the far right, and yeah, relatively lightly defended 2 beach hexes, just a couple of resistance nests, just a couple, not too many, nothing to worry about. With a very strong fleet off the coast. I think another thing that makes Omaha difficult is the relatively. I mean, if I can just show you the Allied fleet off Gold Juno Sword, and again, keep in mind this has to be split between 3 beaches. But you compare these massive stacks of destroyers and LCTs with what you have at Omaha, and that's it. And yeah, as you may have seen in the Omaha playthrough, that's basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fire missions for each of the invasion waves. Yeah. So first objective is getting on the beach. I think second objective is to link the beaches together, get supply going. Then we need to think about what next. Now, the way the campaign works in terms of victory is that the Allies secretly select a plan: the historical plan, the objective Brittany plan, or the first stop Falaise plan. And they only reveal this plan at the end of the game, and based on the situation at the end, they determine whether or not they've secured victory. So the historical plan requires the Allies to capture all these cities, the objective Brittany, and then exit off the south map, edge of the map. The objective Brittany plan requires capture of 14 cities and then exit 50 units. The Falaise plan requires 17 cities and then have exited 100 units off D and C. But the cities are different, so where you are changes. Now, normally, I guess the Allied would keep their plan secret. It's difficult to do that in a solo game. So I don't know, I haven't thought about how I'm going to manage this, how I'm going to resolve. I may just play the historical plan and not worry about the secrecy. Yeah, I'll have to think about that. There are a few other rules that we haven't touched on in the other scenarios. There's, of course, the airborne landings and scatter and so forth. There's the delay markers, which I just touched upon. There's also something I didn't cover in the small scenarios is German unit commitment. And they're also, I think the Germans were a bit loose with their movement on turn 1. They're a bit restricted. We're also dealing now with massive Allied air power. They have hundreds of air strength points, and they need to think about how to spend those. The Germans have dozens of air points, far fewer than the Allies. So there's going to be some interesting considerations there in how these points are spent and what the Allies pursue. I think certainly in the first turn, they want to make sure the invasion succeeds, so dedicating a lot of points to well, to what, I guess. I don't think they can ground support until the beach is open. So there's consideration of ground air superiority and then interdiction as well, which will prevent German reinforcements from reaching the beaches. So yeah, that is the initial setup. I'll be doing some regular reports on progress, and I'll be doing some live playthroughs. So check out both recorded videos and live streams to follow the action. This is definitely going to be a big game, unless of course those initial landings fail and the Allies can't get off the beaches. Stay tuned to find out.